really interesting soup from Central America and Mexico, Sopa de Mora, black nightshade soup. And it's kind of finished like egg drop soup. This is so interesting. I know that yerba mora is sold as an herb at the Asian market that I go to. They will go through like 10 pounds in a day and they sell out in like 24 hours. And what I find really interesting is that the greens that are sold, if you watch my other video on black nightshade, I talk about we want tender greens that we can, put in a pan and cook before the green unripe berries appear. So these are the plants that are being sold and presumably consumed in large quantities here by people in St. Paul, large quantities being relative there, and they're being sold at an what I would call a not ideal stage for eating. So I find that really interesting, and I guess that means if you get plants that have unripe seeds, and if you want to still eat the greens, they're good for soup. I've also cooked some, and they're okay, but they're going to be better if you can get the tender tips of the plant when it's younger before these stems get all woody, because my yield here, I spent about 30 bucks on all these nightshade greens and I maybe got, a pound out of them. So it was relatively expensive. But if that happens to you, you just pick the greens off and we're just going to slice them up and put them in soup and it's perfectly fine. Just not ideal. Then we're going to slice the greens up here. I'll just give them, quarter inch to half inch slice. Nothing too crazy. And some recipes will blanch the greens. Here, we just put them right into the soup. The little bit of bitter flavor is really nice. And it's not overpowering. Now we're going to cut up some zucchini. And if you've seen my video on jambota, you know that I love taking the seeds out of zucchini because they have a different cooking time than the flesh. And it also makes it so you can get more of an even shape when you're dicing. Obviously, you don't have to do that, but you should try it if you haven't done it before. Cut those into dice. Then the other thing we're going to do is cut up some potatoes. You can mix and match. I'm going to use a little bit of gold potatoes and russets here. I've just peeled them, and then we'll cut them into like a half-inch dice, roughly the same size as the zucchini that I have a little piece there for reference. It's really a simple, kind of a humble, rustic soup here. Then I have some tomatoes that I've blanched, and we're going to squeeze the seeds out. I don't like seeds in things with tomatoes that get stuck in your teeth. You could use canned peeled tomatoes too. Those would add a little bit more color to the soup. Be totally fine. But this is what you're going to do if you get fresh romas, which are what I like for if I'm going to add them diced or chopped or make concasse. Squeeze the seeds out, cut them into just a rough chop. Pretty simple. And you can always strain the juice there with the tomatoes, and you could add that to the soup too. Now we're going to build the soup. I got a little oil in the pan with what looks like a little bit of water because it's spattering all over the place. Jalapeno, garlic, and onion. And this should not be spicy. This is made in Mexico, but also I usually have seen this as a Salvadorian soup. And Salvadoran cuisine is not spicy. At least that's what my friends from El Salvador tell me. And when I would cook for them, they hated spicy food. Cook the vegetables until they're kind of tender, nearly tender. Add the tomatoes. Now I'll add some chicken stock. You could use vegetable stock and add some beans if you don't want to use chicken. Just bring that all to a simmer. Cook it until the vegetables are tender. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Turn the heat down there a little bit. Now we'll add the nightshade greens, and we just have to cook these until they're tender. That'll just take a few minutes. And this part of the soup is, pretty hard to mess up. But coming up here, when you finish it, this part you can easily mess up, and I'm going to show you how I messed up my first batch. Add some cooked chicken, ideally from making the chicken broth. You can skip that if you want. And here's what you don't want to do. When you're adding the egg, you can't stir the pot. You want ribbons of tender, velvety egg. So right there, I just ruined it and I made dishwater soup. So I ate that out of spite to punish myself because I always learn the hard way. I'm going to do it the right way. I'll just stir a little bit and it doesn't even need to move. Make sure it's nice and hot so that it'll cook the egg, and just drizzle that in and don't stir it until the egg is completely cooked. This is what we want. Ribbons of tender egg, just like egg drop soup. Give it a little stir. Now, I really liked finishing this with a little cilantro and basil and diced avocado. My friend from El Salvador recommended or said that they would put in there sometimes. I thought that really added a nice texture, but it's not traditional. And that's basically it. It's a really interesting soup that specifically calls for black nightshade greens from Mexico and Central America. Recipes on my website. There's a link at the top of the video description for that. Thanks for watching.